Welcome to the Shit Creek Survivor Show, where we openly share our stories of getting stuck up shit creek without a paddle. We share the good, the bad, and the embarrassing. All the good stuff, right? But most importantly, we celebrate and share how we got out of our own personal shit creeks and got our lives moving in the right direction again. For those of you who aren't familiar with what shit creek or being stuck up shit creek without a paddle is, it refers to times in life or situations, circumstance, places where we end up in situations that we never thought or believed we would ever end up in, or afterwards couldn't even imagine how we were going to get out, but somehow we did. And this is where we share how we did it. This is the place where we share the stories, so you know that you're not feeling alone if you're being body slammed by life right now. Because when you're in the middle of it, it's really hard to believe that there's other people suffering at the same time. There are. You're not alone. I'm not alone. Okay. Now, unfortunately, this has become hard to discuss what's going on in our real lives because right now we live in a everything is perfect Facebook, social media world where people pretend like their childhood dreams went totally through without a bump in their life. It's not true. The truth is, we're all either have gone through something, will go through something, or are currently going through something. And really, the truth is, all three usually land on every person. We're going through something, we've been through something, and we will go through something else, okay? And that's fine. That's actually real life. It's really alarming when we're more worried about being judged by others than trying to get better. It's like we're willing to stay in place so that we don't get judged for failing to get to the next step of our life. It's ridiculous. I don't know if anyone's ever heard it, but there was actually a study where they put fleas in a jar. Fleas can jump an extraordinary height based on their size, right? And if you were to put a flea in a jar without a lid, it would jump up like 3 feet. But if you put a lid on that jar for a continuous period of time, the fleas, after banging into the lid enough times, will stop jumping as high as they can. And what's even more alarming is their children, the fleas' offspring, won't ever even try to jump as high as they can. Because based on what they're seeing their parents doing, it's not worth it. They're repeating what they're seeing, right?
Wow.
That's
I never heard
scary,
of that.
right? Yeah, it's really alarming. And we can't believe that since we don't see other people in our immediate lives, I don't know, succeeding, being happy, whatever it is, we
Yeah.
feel like
Well,
we're not, yeah, we feel like we're not worthy, which is
it feels like it
crazy.
speaks like towards hope, like having
Yeah.
hope, keeping hope, and passing on hope is what it kind of speaks to. So you keep banging your head on the wall. You got to have hope alive that that wall's going to, or that ceiling's going to disappear at one point in time. You keep jumping, and then you got to teach your kids to keep jumping and keep jumping.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. No, I never heard of that before, but that's I kind of like that. That's a good one.
Yeah, I just remembered that. So I am joined by my friend today and former police patrol partner,
Yeah.
Dennis Kaufman. Thank you for being
Yes,
here
it is.
today, Dennis. Love you. Uh,
Love you too, brother.
Dennis and I work side by side in the same car for the same police department in St. Louis County. And after you drive around on the 12-hour shift for months, which turns into years, eventually you start running out of things to talk about. And it turns out we started talking about real life things that were bothering us, maybe even problems in our life. And it turned out when I started speaking the words that I was thinking, I started catching my own slips. I'm like, that sounds pretty extreme. Why do I think that? Wow, that sounds different out loud. So we were able to help one another in our own personal lives and basically back one another up, build a trusting relationship, trusting enough to share what was bothering us. And we want to bring that to you so you guys know that, you know, there's other people out there who are here to help, okay? On the last episode, I shared my personal story of getting shot in the face, my struggles with PTSD, becoming a full-blown alcoholic, gaining 80 pounds in 12 months, being in a 5-week coma on life support, and having a near-death experience. So let's talk about how things went. So
Only one near death experience.
yeah, one real near-death experience where I got to hold my grandma's hand in heaven. So if you haven't heard that episode, make sure you check out the previous episode, episode 1. But so I was in a near-death experience. I'm literally holding my grandma's hand in heaven. Okay. I'm in a 5-week coma, plugged into the wall. I'm in no pain finally because I'm in the light. I feel the love. And suddenly I wake up to my dear wife slapping me in the face, telling me to breathe. And guess what came right back? All the pain. The,
Dang.
the physical pain, the emotional pain, and the spiritual pain. Everything came back. And when I woke up,
It's
I
almost
really,
like you left this realm and came back to this realm.
yeah, yeah, it absolutely was. And the truth was, I wasn't that happy about it because the other place I was a very non-pain place. But I woke up and I was in a tremendous amount of pain. Unfortunately, I was not automatically changed by my near death situation. I was basically telling everyone who would listen, get me out of this hospital, my body, my choice. And they were like,
I
well,
don't want
not
to
so
be.
much. They're like, you have to be discharged by the doctor. And I'm like, no, I get to discharge myself. And they're like, what? So
It's not going to
really?
work that way this time.
It didn't work that way this time. I really thought that I was going to be getting out of there. So I'm basically just waking up for a 5-week coma that my whole family has had to witness. It's a family juggling act. There's someone at the hospital with me. My wife's working at a new job. Things are really kind of been up in the air while I've been unconscious. I don't know about all this. I think that I just woke up. I didn't know I had been asleep for 5 weeks. And I immediately wanted to go home and was like, you can't keep me here. And I was basically informed that that's not true. So I'm like, I know what I'll do. I'll work my angles. So I started asking the nurses. I'm like, well, first it was family. First it was Kate, my wife. And I was like, honey, you just got to get me out of here. Just do what you got to do. Get me out of here. And with love, she didn't do what I said. And in the moment, I was a little upset. And I was like, fine, I'll do it myself. So I started, as much as you can chat up a nurse being totally sedated, that's what I was trying to do. And I had no shame in it. I was trying to get one of the nurses to somehow get me out of there. And I was doing this right in front of my wife, which my mom thought was really funny. She was cracking up laughing, right? And my wife was a little annoyed, and but that didn't work. I started talking to the doctors. That they were a brick wall, no chance I'm getting out. So I'm like, you know what? I'll do it on my own. So I decided I'd wait for the perfect time, and I would get out of my hospital bed, and I would simply walk out of the hospital. Right? There's so much activity going on in a hospital.
Right.
I'm in like ICU. Actually,
You see it in the movies all the time. Just throw on a doctor's lab coat and walk out. Nobody will
well,
question you.
I didn't even think I needed to do that. I just was like, I'll have my ass out and then I'll somehow get home. I didn't even know what hospital I was in. I believed I was in Barnes Jewish, which is downtown St. Louis, but I was actually in Mercy, which is like West County, St. Louis County, quite a ways away. Didn't know where I was, anything like that. I just knew I wanted to go home. So I tried to get out of there. And my first escape, I was waiting for the right time. I don't remember all of it, but I do remember a good part of it. And I waited for my perfect time. I got my legs off the bed. And then, boom, I'm standing up. Again, I don't realize that I've been unconscious for 5+ weeks, right? Let alone on a ventilator
Yeah.
for 5 weeks. And when I go to take my first step, my leg doesn't move, but my upper body
Yeah.
does. And I really quickly learned that as an adult who you have no reaction because it turns out your muscles have all atrophied since you've been asleep for 5 weeks. I became basically a tree falling, and I watched the whole thing happen as the floor. Exactly. And Vince Vaughn said it right. Big tree fall hard. So, so wham, right on my face. Boom. But now I'm on the ground, and I realize I can't get caught trying to escape. So what I do is I like shuffle back to, I'm crawling on the ground. I get to the hospital bed. I put my hands up on the bed, like I'm pulling up on the mattress. It's taking
Right.
everything in me because I've got no muscle. I'm climbing up the bed, climbing up the bed. I get in there. I just flip on my back. I'm exhausted. I mean, I'm breathing hard. And the nurse walks in and goes, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Okay, okay." So, first escape did not work. Second
Did she
escape.
call you on it?
No,
Because they
I
see
don't.
your heartbeat going up, they know something's up.
I don't know. It would be interesting to hear the other side of that story. I just realized saying it out loud. What if they watched that whole thing?
They probably did. They might have. They might have cameras in there. They
Including
definitely
like the
watched your heartbeat go up and your
they're like, look at this
breathing go up.
dumbass. Look at that dumbass fall over.
Yeah.
Look at that dumbass climbing up on the bed. I'm gonna go check on him. You know,
Go check on him, make sure he's okay.
yeah. Cover your own ass. And so, all right. So first
See,
escape.
that would be interesting to get her their opinion on that too, or their take on it.
Yeah.
Goodness. So now that one didn't work. What are you
First
gonna do
attempt.
now?
So pulled myself together and realized I needed some sort of walker to get out of there. Actually, a wheelchair, most likely. But I decided I wasn't going. Somehow I got a hold of a wheelchair. I think it was in the hallway. And I knew that if I could get to the wheelchair, I could use it to hold me up to walk. So I was able to
Right.
get to the wheelchair. And this is after like 3 or 4 days. I'm finally strong enough, or think I'm strong enough to get over to the wheelchair. I get the wheelchair. I'm walking down the hallway. I've just got a gown on. I'm pretty sure I don't even have underwear on, so my ass is hanging out. And I get all the way to the elevator, hit the button to go down, and as the door opens, who's standing there? My doctor. And
Did
so
he
then I was,
recognize you right away?
yep, yep. So then I was placed in the wheelchair that I was using to get out and taken back to my room, which is kind of defeating. You just want to like shake your arm at him. So that all happened, but
No
eventually,
dessert for you.
no dessert from me. And so eventually I was able to go from, I went to ICU to, there's another tier right below it before they release you to kind of like general rooms kind of deal. And so I went through those processes. The hospital is weird. It takes a long, like, if you want one thing to be done, like to move from one room to another, it's going to take 24 hours, which is insane. But I understand it's all has to do with hospital policy and the paperwork and all that kind of stuff and insurance and whatever it is. But I just wanted to go from one room to another so I could get to if I get to this category where I'm no longer in ICU and I'm no longer like they're really worried about me, then they'll release me, right?
Yeah. Or at least
But
you'll be able
it
to sneak out a little easier.
Right, or I should be able to sneak out a little bit better. But they decided that my inability to walk was a problem. And they also weren't sure, and I didn't know this in the moment, how I would return. They weren't sure if I possibly had like permanent brain injury from either the seizures or the lack of oxygen at times from the right lung being collapsed and having pneumonia in the other one. There was all kinds of stuff going on. So they decided I needed to go to this clinic, which is typically used for stroke victims. And what it's meant
Okay.
to do is kind of get you back on your feet, learn how to walk, learn how to kind of brush your teeth, learn how to use the restroom, learn how to shower, all these kinds of things. And they told me I was going to have to go to another place. I was not happy about that. So they were going to put me in an ambulance. I was like, Kate, how about you take me? My dear wife. And she's
They
like,
knew you weren't going to show up.
yeah, she's like, I don't think we should do that. My mom was definitely like, that is not happening. I said it was happening. And of course, on the way home, I pleaded that she didn't take me to the clinic. But out of love, she did, which is amazing. All right. She knew what was better for me in that moment. And so I went to the clinic and I was supposed to be in there for 14 days. That's what they thought it would take. I asked them the first day, what is it going to take for me to get out of here? They're like, you got to do three things. One is you got to be able to use the restroom on your own. Two is you got to be able to shower. And three is you got to be able to walk around and get up some stairs on your own. And once you do that, we can then release you. And I said, bet. here we go. Now, I did forget to mention that while I was in the hospital, turns out drinking a lot can lead to gout. And
Yeah.
as I'm learning to walk, I don't know if anyone out there has ever had gout, but having a sheet laying on your foot if you've got gout is so painful, and it doesn't even make sense why it would be so painful, but it really is. And I was making such a ruckus, like, my this hurts, this hurts. Eventually the doctors looked at me and they go, wow, you might have gout. And so they eventually
Yeah.
got working on that. And so my feet hurt really bad, but within 3 days, I was able to clean myself, walk upstairs, and use the restroom on my own. So I was able to get
There you
released
go.
in three. Yeah. So I was able to get released. And as soon as they told me I was released, I called Kate, my wife, who was at work. And again, I'm not proud of how I acted for this period of time. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life kind of working through or putting apologizing through action. Maybe that's a good way. I don't. I I said that to her before, and she's like, "You don't need to do that. You do the same for me." I was like, "Honey, I don't think you realize what you." And you'll know more and more as the story goes on, like what she
Yeah.
did. But the fact that I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, she stuck with me. She got me to that clinic. She got me released, or I got myself released. Now I'm calling her in the middle of a workday saying, you have to come pick me up now. She leaves work, which is a relatively new job, picks me up, picks my brat ass up, and then takes me home where I now have to. Well, first off, they weren't going to release me until my wife put a ramp at the house because they didn't think I was coming home on my own efforts. And my wife looked at him and said, "We're not putting a ramp at our house. He will walk in the house." And that's what happened. My wife is a warrior. So I was able to get home. The rule was I wasn't allowed to be left alone. So while Kate went to work, my dad would actually come over and just hang out with me. I wasn't too happy about being babysat. I don't think a grown man ever would who feels like their life is upside down. So even though I was home, I had a lot of work to do. So the first thing I
Yeah.
had to
It's
do,
amazing. It's amazing to me for the things that I've gone through or seen other people go through or hearing you what you're saying you've gone through as well. But you're right. We want to be by ourselves, and you feel like you're being babysat. It really feels like the worst thing ever. And I want to just say that I think it's okay to be alone during this time because that's when you
yeah,
really get to understand that you do need the help. So
yeah,
I mean, it was really fresh and new, so no, there's no harm or foul for somebody babysitting you. But I get where you're like, I don't want anybody here. I want to be by myself. I want to be miserable, and I want to work through this in whatever
yeah,
way I can. So, I just think that's a normal feeling that people are going to feel. And
yeah,
if anybody feels that way, like I just want to be by myself, sometimes that's not a bad thing.
right.
Don't
And
feel
when
like
you're
it's a bad thing. Embrace it.
Yeah. And if you go through a situation where you're unable to make your own choices and people are making choices for you, you feel so out of control. You're not even in the conversations having to do with like
Yeah.
your future, you know? So, it's unbelievable. But again, eventually I got out. I'm being babysat, and they're like, the other thing you can't do is you're not allowed to go down the stairs into the basement. We just had a single story home with a basement, and I was like, bullshit, And so I went down in the
Quick.
basement. I realized I couldn't walk up the stairs. My dad's upstairs. He's kind of older. So I'm literally crawling up the stairs, but I'm not strong enough to crawl up the stairs and pull my body weight. So it's literally like to pull myself up instead of it being like kind of a crawl. It's like a grab and drag, like a grab and drag. So that's all happening at home.
Hip up one step at a time.
Yeah, but speaking of which, my wife, before she's going to work, is taking me for walks so I can learn how to walk again. The first day was like from the front door to the mailbox, then from the next day is front door to the driveway, then from that driveway to another driveway the next day, and then like it just kind of went and kept
Baby
going
steps.
again. Yeah, baby
Keep
steps.
moving forward.
And so I'm doing that. I'm not happy. I am sober. I'm not drinking. Again, I didn't actually realize how much of a part the drinking had played in me getting into this situation. I think I almost like subconsciously like just didn't understand the gravity of what I was doing to myself, but it is what it is. And so I'm I'm getting better. I'm walking. I'm becoming more independent. I don't need a babysitter anymore after about like 2 or 3 months. They trust me enough to leave me at home and all that kind of stuff. And Kate and I went out to lunch one day and suddenly decided I'm a grown ass man and I get to do what I want to do. So I am going to have a beer. A beer. I had a beer that day. Grown ass man. The next day I'm like, I'm a grown ass man. I can have 2 beers. And then, the next day I'm like, wow, I'm really a grown ass man. I can control my drinking. I'm gonna have, I'll buy a 6 pack. And then, 6 pack turned into like, I'm getting a 12 pack, you know, now I'm drinking like 8 beers. And what happens is you get a really good idea.
See,
You're
what
like, you know what?
happened was,
What had happened was is I realized drinking all this beer wasn't good for me. I was gonna put the weight back on that I had lost while I was in a coma. All right, so I decided it's a good idea. Well, let's switch it up to vodka again because vodka is really it's a lot safer and it's better for you. No, wrong, wrong, wrong. And so now I'm drinking more. I know I can feel it in me that control is slipping and slipping and slipping. I start going into a place where I'm hiding my drinking again. At this point, for the first time, I actually had hid a couple bottles of vodka at my house because I
wow.
didn't want Kate or my family to know what was going on. But then one day, I jump in the car and I'm heading to a therapy appointment, the therapist that I have been seeing for a long time, even before I got shot, all that kind of stuff. So I show up. Hold on. Let me rewind. I'm in the car on my way to the therapy appointment, and I'm driving down the highway. And suddenly, I had this overwhelming feeling, almost like a sign from God saying, I've taken you this far. If you go any further, I'm not going to be able to turn it around for you. And it scared the shit out of me. And I got to my therapy appointment and I was so like shook up. Immediately she goes, "What's wrong?" And I knew that if I said the words that I needed to say, that I have been drinking, I can't control it, I'm scared, all this kind of stuff. If those words come out of me, I can't take them back.
Well, right, but it's being honest with yourself and your situation.
Right. So I was at a standstill or at a fork in the road. I could either say nothing was going on and try to sort it out myself, or I could trust the feeling that I had on the way. And although the words coming out of my mouth were going to change forever, I knew they had to be said. And I said, I'm drinking again. It's out of control. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. And my therapist looked right back at me and she says, "You're going to do 3 things right now if you want to keep working with me." And I said, "Okay." She said, "First, you're going to call your wife in front of me and you're going to let her know that you've been drinking, that you're hiding it, and you're going to ask her to remove any alcohol that's in the house." Yeah. So I called my wife at work and crying, just sobbing, apologizing, and asking for forgiveness. And the first thing she said to me was, "Okay, what do you need me to do?" As simple as that. My life changed because she could have said right in that moment, "I can't do this. This is bullshit," and she would have been right.
Yeah.
But by God's grace and mercy, she said those words which changed my life, which changed my recovery, because the fact that she was giving me another chance, I wasn't gonna fuck it up. Or I believed I wasn't gonna fuck it up.
Well,
With full commitment, I'm like, okay, I did that. Kate's got my back. She said, the second thing you're gonna do right now is you're gonna call your parents in front of me, and you're gonna tell them you're heading to their house, and that you're gonna be there until Kate gets home, and you're gonna admit to them what you've been doing. I said, okay. So I called and my mom picked up and I said, "Hey, I'm at therapy. Are you going to be at the house for a bit?" She said, "Yeah." I was like, "I need to come over and talk to you about something and I need to stay at your house until Kate gets home." She's like, "Okay, what's going on?" I was like, "I'll tell you about it when I get there." She's like, "Fine, we'll wait for you." And so they waited for me at home. And then the therapist said, "The third thing you're going to do is you're going to an AA meeting tonight. Otherwise, I'm not going to work with you anymore. And I was put in a position where I really didn't have a choice. I had tried to handle all this on my own. It wasn't working. And
You
now
did have
I'm
a
literally,
choice.
yeah,
You had a choice. You
yeah,
listened to that inner voice and was honest in the situation, and you said something that got you the help that you needed and got you pushed through the direction you needed to go. So you had the choice. You made the right choice or the better choice in that situation, and not saying, no, I still got this. I can do this on my own when it's clearly you don't and it's not working.
yeah,
Accepting that and knowing that and then acting on it. I mean, those are huge steps. Do not take that away from you. Okay?
yeah. Well,
Those are huge steps.
I can see that. I would say that to someone else. It's funny how we can recognize like triumphs in other people's lives, but we
Yeah.
can't see it on our own.
I give the best advice. I just don't ever take it.
Me too. Me too. As you can tell by my story, it's just like a constant like left, right, and it's like the
That's
problem
life,
is
brother. That's life.
as I'm going through it, I believe I'm making rational choices. Like I'm articulating afterwards, that was a reasonable choice to try to run away from the hospital. They're like, no, it's not. Like it's, and so, yeah, so I'm going through that. And so I get to my parents' house after I leave my therapy appointment. I tell my parents what's going on. They greeted me with love and they were like, okay, what are we going to do? I felt very disappointed in myself that day because my mother had told me growing up that her father was an alcoholic and that I really need to be worried about it. And
Genetically predisposition or
right, but I would
predisposed, whatever the word is. I can't talk all of a sudden.
no that
Yeah,
you
there's
had
truth to that.
pre
And you felt like you had let her
predisposition.
down because she had told you this and you didn't listen.
Yeah, and it's not only that I didn't listen. I was like, well, that's not going to happen to me, and I'll show you. It's just how I've been. I don't know since I've been
Yeah,
born. I don't know
your
what's.
ego and your pride gets the best of you.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, that's been a part of the storyline all along too.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And we'll see when we get there when I realize it because, up to this point, I think I'm walking with purpose. But, so I get to my parents' house. I admit to them that I've been drinking. Kate's at the house emptying the alcohol. And then she helps me find an AA meeting to go to. And I went to my first AA meeting in Kirkwood, Missouri. I was literally shaking out of fear. And I knew I needed to get sober, but the first thing they talk about in AA is a higher power. And I was like, that's okay. You can keep the higher power. I just need to quit drinking. And as soon as I heard someone, well, I went, yeah. So I went to my first AA meeting and, they go through it. And one of the first things that I picked up, and I think a lot of people try to do when they first get into AA, is they hear someone say, I have an allergic reaction to alcohol. That's why I'm an
Okay.
alcoholic. And you're like, you know what? That sounds right. I am allergic to alcohol. If I would just quit drinking, things would just automatically get better. Right. So that's what I did. I was like, you know what? I'll just get sober. I don't need the higher power. I even had I had conversations with people who were trying to help me in AA that were like, I was trying to explain to them, actually almost like interrogate them into how do you know there's a higher power? Listen to what happened to me. So
Yeah.
I'm a victim in that situation now that I hear it out loud. Again, this is why we talk about this stuff, because when you say stuff out loud, you hear it and you're like, okay, maybe that wasn't right. But you know what I mean? Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Arr, maybe that wasn't right. I just corrected it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but that's true.
And so I go to my first AA meeting. I don't believe I belong there. I've just heard someone say that they have an allergy. I'm like, that's the ticket. Someone else had said to me, you need to use a higher power. That's what everyone else in here has done to get sober. I said, I don't believe in a higher power, or at least that higher power no longer wants me. And then someone looked at me and basically said, I tell you what, make that chair your higher power. And I was like, ha, ha, ha. Why? He's like, because that chair is making better decisions than you. I'm like, oh, very funny. Like very funny, you know. I'm like, I'll show you, you know.
That
And
chair didn't
so
try to leave the hospital.
so that first, you go to your first meeting, what they give you is a white chip, which is to represent a burning desire to quit drinking. Because when you're
Right.
that deep in it, you can't see like 10 minutes ahead of where you're at and not drinking in between the moment you're in and then. You're like, I can't make it 10 minutes. And then there's moments where you can't make it an hour. And then it's just like, but especially when you first walk in those doors, you're so beaten up and just like destroyed that like you can't even make it like 10 minutes without, like, alcohol has consumed your whole life. Everything is planned around it, and that's what it turned into me. And so, you get the first chip, and then the next step is making it 30 days. And I made it 30 days. I made it to like 6 weeks. I'm feeling good. I'm kind of doing it on my own. And what had happened was,
What you
is
see, what had happened was,
what had happened was is we had already paid for we were going to a wedding, a out of country wedding in St. Lucia at an all
ooh,
inclusive
nice.
resort. So what do you get at an all inclusive resort?
I'll drink for free over there, right?
All the
I get
drinks
to
for
make up for the
all the
last 6 weeks.
well, it was more like I'm not gonna waste my money, So so
I've already
now I'm
paid for all
rash.
this alcohol. I might as well drink it too. Yeah, no, I've been in those shoes too.
I only made it to the hotel. So I like made it to the hotel, and right when you show up, they show up with a tray and they're like, "This is the lemonade and this is the cocktail." I chose a cocktail, and then like I went on this basically like 3 day, I didn't do anything like stupid, but I just like drank and
Drink.
drank. And like I'm sure it didn't make sense to people because they knew what I had been through. They probably had a better understanding about what was going on from an overhead perspective because my life was so like in the moment, right here. I didn't have a lot of separation from the world. I don't know if that makes sense. Do you get that?
No, I get you. Yeah.
Like
I,
whatever the
I
world was
don't know.
doing, I was
I don't know
being
how a
pushed.
better way to explain it would be though, because it's one of
Yeah,
those things that you almost just have to feel yourself before you can know how to explain it or what somebody's talking about.
right,
I mean, I don't know. Like sex, maybe. You can
right.
explain what sex is like to somebody who's never had it. They're not going to know until they actually have sex or how it feels.
That's
You're not
funny.
going to feel. You're not going to know what it feels like going through this from any angle before, during, or after until you've been it before, during, or after. Let alone watching it from another angle that your family members are doing it. That's a whole nother perspective.
Have you ever
Layers, brother. Layers. Life is just full of layers.
have you ever heard that Tom Segura or Segura, whatever, stand up where he's talking about condom or sex without a condom for the first time?
He's part of the two men in a cave or something, like two bears in a cave
Yeah, two bears
podcast,
in a
right? Him
cave,
and
but
Bert.
he also does one with his wife, like your mom's house. But this stand up was from a while ago, and he was talking about, I'm about to have a kid. Turns out sex without a condom is awesome. He's like, anyone who told you
I can see
different,
him
they're
saying that too.
they're
But I mean,
wrong.
but there's some truth to it. I mean, we going through all these issues and these problems and these bumps in the road, finding yourself up shit creek for the second, third, fourth, eighth time this year or whatever.
Hmm.
But you don't really understand how to get out of it until you get out of it. And then even knowing it, you can't even always duplicate it the same way. You're still, I mean, the same way as being honest with yourself and getting help and making positive changes will be the same way, but it might not exactly be the exact same way as the last time that you got out of it. But that's what we're here. We're here to talk about that kind of stuff. And hopefully we're helping somebody else out there that can relate. And you don't have to be shot in the face to have some of these feelings, but you can definitely have these feelings and not know how to get out of them.
Yeah.
And people that can see it from the other angles are always going to have different perspectives, all these different layers. But go on, I interrupted you enough. You're in St.
No,
Lucia.
no,
You're
no.
you're
So
you're
yeah,
indulging.
I'm in St. Lucia. I'm indulging. I can tell by, I think we were only there like 3 days, that alcohol, if you will, had its hooks in me.
Yeah.
And I knew that because, I mean, we're leaving the last day. And I'm like, yeah, let's grab some morning cocktails. Let's take advantage of this. Like, I'm rationalizing. I'm like, I have an all-inclusive
Yeah.
thing. Let's take advantage of that, right?
They're already paid for it. I'm not going to waste the money. Yeah. No,
Right.
I get
So
you.
we go from like St. Lucia. I'm not sure what airport we went through. It's either like Miami or Dallas or somewhere in there. But I told my wife I was going to the bathroom, and I went to one of the bars in the airport, and I got a beer and a shot, and I slammed him down. And and the shame came back from like hiding the alcohol uh, from her. She asked me if I had just done it. I lied to her and said I hadn't. But when I got on the plane that was heading to St. Louis, I decided that I would not. I knew that if I drank when I landed, like if I started drinking again in St. Louis, I wasn't going to be able to make it back. I remembered what God made me feel on the highway on the way to my therapist about, there's no turnaround point past this. And by God's good grace, I've been sober since that day that that I got back to St. Louis. And
Nice.
that was that was my road to really getting in the boat for sobriety. It didn't get me sober, because that happens over work and time, but it I was scared again enough to get really kind of like in the blinders for right? I'm like, I will not kill myself with alcohol after surviving being shot in the face and going through a 5-week coma. Like this can't be how it ends. This can't be how
Right.
it goes. And so I'm basically like white knuckling it. I'm going to AA.
Yep.
I'm starting to listen to people. I've got a sponsor. I'm meeting with people outside of the meetings. I'm attending more meetings and I'm doing the work. I'm actually doing the steps of AA compared to just showing up. And I worked really, really hard. I was still filled with resentment and anger. And I was going to therapy. I'm taking my medication. I'm doing what I need to do, but I'm still not right. So I figure if I'm not drinking, I should change my diet. Easy pass to get into shape, right? So I changed my diet, started feeling a little bit better, but it didn't fix everything. I start going to the gym because I thought maybe that would be what needs to happen. If I lose weight and I get in shape, I'll feel better. I'll be back to my old self. That didn't happen. Then people were talking to me about meditation at AA, and I'm like, how do you expect me to sit there and think about nothing when my world is like just filled with obsessive thinking of the same thing over and over and over in flashbacks? They're like, well, I guess you'll have to figure it out. But out of desperation, I eventually started meditating. And it was literally like, if I can just get through 30 seconds, if I can get through a minute without, freaking out or,
Okay.
whatever it is, there's some really good apps you can get, and those help me for anyone who's looking for help with meditation. The apps and guided meditations. I started with body scans because that was kind of like basic to me. It's like feel your right foot,
Okay.
feel your right knee. Like that sort of stuff. So you're actively feeling like in your physical world compared to like running over stuff in your head. And eventually it does work. So anyone who's thinking about it, please take the chance on it. Anyone who's kind of stepped away from it, go back to it. Every time I step away because I think I'm doing well, I end up getting stressed out. I'm like, what am I doing different? My wife will look at
I've heard some really good things about like yoga and stuff, and
me.
that
Yeah.
is in the same kind of boat as meditation. And I would just like to add that if any of the watchers don't like us bringing up Christianity or religion for your higher power, when they go to AA, they can use like meditation and stuff too to fill that same kind of purpose. It just needs to be based in good intentions and a good moral code kind of feelings and thoughts. And as long as you're making positive impacts and you're doing it by meditation, you can still fill that role of that higher power when it comes to the AA meetings and stuff like that. So just want to
Yeah.
throw that out there too, because I know we might have anybody, who knows who's watching, you know,
Exactly. But what's true though, like is back to
all
what I was
three of
saying.
them.
My higher power chair was
Right,
making
right.
better decisions than me. Like, so I could literally run things past something that basic. Just an outside third party, my chair is going to
Right.
help me make decisions. Should I drink today? Chair says no. So,
Chair says no. Chair didn't say
so
anything. Don't
well,
respond if you don't
you're
respond
like,
if you want me to drink.
yeah, because if you're asking that question, you probably already know the answer.
Well, and we said something earlier off camera before we started about like road rage.
Yeah,
I kind of want to kick this into that side a little bit too, because that's part of that whole I don't know, feeling like we've been walked over
yeah,
because nothing seems to go right. You just feel like you can't make the right decisions, or everybody's making decisions for you, or You just kind of feel walked on. That the next thing you know, you're like, I don't want to be walked on anymore. Like, you can't
Right.
talk to me like that. You can't treat me this way. I'm tired of it. And it could be just somebody cutting you off on the road, and all of a sudden, like, oh, I'm gonna teach you.
Yeah.
This isn't how you're supposed to. You can't do that to me.
Yeah.
And it just, man, that has to be one of the first big signs that you have to catch on to. Your anger is getting the best of you, whatever you're going through. That's got to
Yeah.
be one of the first big signs. I'm tired of being walked on or feeling walked on.
Yes.
And then you're going to act out and do something bad to somebody else.
And I had never really experienced it in my personal life, but I had, for me, but you and I had, when you're in the police field, you deal with people who are in their worst moments. In their worst moments, just like I was having my worst moments, And it's just, I kind of lost track of where I was going there. But, oh, wait, no, no, no. So, you're like angry and you're angry and you're angry.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I was like, I'm willing to die before someone takes advantage of me, steps on me, anything like that. Like I was willing to die for it because I didn't feel like I had anything to lose. When you feel like you have nothing
Felt like you're
to
in a corner.
lose, right, and you feel like you have no future, and what happens is you become like a bull who's been like beat on. If you take a pit bull who's been beat on by a human, it's going to find a corner in a room that it's placed in and basically say, this is my corner. If anyone comes near me, you will get bit. The rest of the world can stay over there. I'll be over here. I won't mess with you. If you mess with me, I'm coming. Like basically this line in the sand that I have established my space. If you cross this line, you will deal with me, right? It really with PTSD, you get that hypervigilant aggression, and you're ready to rock at any point. And just based on like a sudden feeling, you can all of a sudden be activated into like, like I was talking about in the last episode. I was so hypervigilant that I was creating like attack and like battle scenarios in my house if the bad guys ever came, or if like they ever got on my street, what we would do. I had my car parked in the backyard. You know what I mean? Like I'm losing my mind going through this whole process. But anyways, all right.
Another good way I probably explained it with my therapist at one point in time. The thoughts that go through your head is like cable TV with 180 channels on it. And one channel is something I've done in the past. One channel is something I should do in the future. One channel is something I resented. One channel is something I enjoyed. One channel is the event that happened. One channel is one of the events that happened after that was similar that kicked it off. One event's like, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if somebody comes down the street? It's like 180 thoughts. And I'm just going like this with the clicker through every single channel for about 2 seconds.
Wow, I've never heard that. And it's just
constantly going through and going through. And it's like 1 second it's something about home. The next second is something about PTSD. And that's how my night would be, trying to go to sleep. And that's what I would try to drink to drown out, to quiet that, to get it to stick to one channel for a second, even if it's just the black and white fuzzy channel. Even if it's just that channel, just get it to stop on one channel for a second so I can relax and go to sleep.
I really like that. Because you're constantly trying to find the place where you can be comfortable. Just be like, where's that channel where I can just pause for a second and just chill?
Right, exactly. But you never find the one to pause. You just go through all the other problems and all the other situations and all the other, even some good things, but a lot of them are bad things. And you're like, I just can't get through them.
Yeah, and then you activate a little bit, and that brings up other memories. Sure. And then you're like, boom, and then it's like, boom, and before you know, you got a battle plan and what you're going to do.
How I should have done that differently in that day when something bad did happen. How I'm going to do it next time when something bad happens again. What if something I never thought of happens? How am I going to get away from this one? How am I going to fight back on this one? It's just constant, like channel after channel after channel. And it's like,
and for me, a big channel is how did I let that happen? Like that's a big channel. It's reviewing everything I did with like a critical red pen being like wrong, F, like that, like this is terrible. I've come a long way. And yes, we will discuss it. So basically, basically, I'm back from St. Louis. I've decided I'm going to get into the program. I'm doing everything that they're telling me to do. I'm meditating, but I'm having trouble with the higher power. And one of the things that happened before I was able to get closer to that higher power is I actually attended the trial of the individual who shot me. And I was a witness because, I saw the red car moving away from me. And it turns out Jeffrey, who was the suspect, was driving a red car. And this was the first time I had seen this guy. This is like a year and a half after he shot me, kind of deal. And as I told my story in the courtroom, there was no command officer presence from our department, which I noticed. I don't know the politics behind that, but anyways. But I told my story, and I just like I said it in the first episode, and when I looked at Jeffrey, his face was just blank. It was the weirdest thing. It looked like he was like hollow, like there was no one, like he did not look like a criminal mastermind. He did not look like someone who planned shooting me in the face or anything like that.
Yeah,
He
it wasn't.
looked like a dum
He
dum.
was up Shit
Just
Creek himself.
yeah, and he
He was up
just
his own
like
Shit Creek.
he can't even hold his mouth shut. You know what I mean? So he's like, and I shouldn't be saying all this, but anyways, I mean, in that moment, I knew 100% that this individual did not mean to shoot me. He was an idiot, and that it is what it is. I didn't have problems with him at that point.
Good. You got some clarity and some peace of mind out of it. That's awesome.
And that grew. That grew to where I've even had impulses of wanting to contact him and be like, "Hey, I don't know if this matters, but I'm not angry with you."
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that would do anything for him. I don't know if it would do anything for me. But anyways, long story short, it's amazing.
If you feel the drawing and enough in your heart, then that might be a higher power trying to tell you to do it, and maybe it will help him. Maybe it'll help you. Maybe it doesn't help anybody, and it doesn't hurt anybody. I don't know.
Yeah, as
But
long as
I
it
would
doesn't hurt
suggest
anyone.
if you keep feeling it, maybe you go for it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Examine it. Give yourself a few minutes to kind of talk about why you want to do it. If it's going to be something that benefits you, then definitely do it. If you think it might be something that could benefit him, then maybe it's the right time for him to hear that. And maybe that's his higher power is going to talk to him a little bit because you send him that forgiveness or something. I don't know. I would just say, yeah, listen to your heart. If you feel it, if you keep feeling the draw for it, examine it more and maybe go through with it. My
Yeah,
advice.
I appreciate it, buddy. You're right. And it's funny how things change over time. So, you know, I remember after, I've gotten to the meditation, I'm doing the things that the AA is supposed to help me with and all that kind of stuff. And I had used every resource and every tool except for really examining what a higher power would be and how that would help me. Cracking the door to like, could this be helpful? Is this something I need? And I was in my basement and I could tell that I wasn't going to make it. I felt I, I just thought I was going to go back to drinking. I was going to die and it was just going to be awful. And so I was really, really scared. So out of fear and desperation, I pretty much hit my knees. And while crying, I said, Lord, if you're there, I need help. Please help me, please. And it felt like for a couple of hours, I almost like wrestled with God. I had a lot of issues, and a lot of the issues I had with God were actually of now that I see it my own making. There were things that I had done
How
that
come
made me
wrong?
feel shameful, which separated me from God. I thought He had left me, right? I thought He had left me. But it turns out that I needed to uh, ask for help, and I acknowledged a higher power. I was raised in a Christian household, so that's my understanding of a higher power. Anyone can have their understanding of a higher power, whatever it may be. But for me, I reached out to Christ and I reached out to God and I prayed for help. I prayed as hard as I've ever prayed in my whole life. And it really felt like I was being wrestled and like it was just very odd. But when I woke up the next day, I suddenly had a stronger relationship with Jesus. It's like We had finally gone into the same room and not had it out, but like almost had like a stare down.
Well, it's your internal struggles. It's not just with him. It's also with the absence of him. It's also with the Satan, the devil. It's
Yeah.
also with your own internal struggles of whether you really believe or don't really believe. It's your own faith struggles that you're trying to get through. It kind of reminds me of the devil and the angel sitting on your shoulder, both giving you advice, and you got to try to listen to which one you're going to listen to. It also reminds me of an old Indian proverb about the dad telling the young kid, we have two wolves inside of you, a good wolf and a bad wolf, and you're going to hear them both. And he's like, well, which one is going to be stronger? And it's going to be the one that you feed. The one that you feed will be the stronger voice. I feel like it's the same thing with the angel and the devil on your shoulder. Which one are you going to listen to? Which one are you going to give more voice to?
Hmm.
At that point in time, you'd be giving both of them too much attention. And now you're trying to give one more attention. Well, the other one wants to fight for it. So that's the internal struggle that you're having with your whole deciding on your
Yeah.
whole faith base.
Yeah.
Again, normal reactions to how we feel after abnormal situation.
Yeah. And it was just such a long process to even get to that point where I was willing to submit. I really surrendered
Yeah,
in that moment. I was like,
that's a good
I
way to
will
put it.
surrender, but you got to come through on this. Otherwise, I'm not going to make it. Like, I will die. If you're there, please help me. And I kept building that relationship with God, but I was going to therapy again twice a week. I was sober. I had some time under my belt. Are you there?
Yeah, here. Your earplugs went off for a second.
Oh, they're there now. What was I saying? Okay. What was I
No,
saying?
you were.
Oh, so I had a little time. So I had a little time under my belt, in sobriety, and I had been kind of working with God, like sort of being like, I'll go this far if you go that far, and if you go that far, I'll go this far, and this sort of
It's still
thing, right?
bargaining.
Yeah,
It's still
bargain.
bargaining with
Right. So yeah. So you're like,
grief acceptance.
you almost like want the sense of control, but you're out of control. There's just so many, but you're right. It's bargaining.
It's
So I'm
still
bargaining
bargaining.
with God. I'm like, I'll go this far if you go this far, sir. And then, so I
Which
was,
he's got to be like he's got to be like the parent telling the kid, no, you can't even more candy, and the kid goes, I'm gonna have more candy, and the adult goes, yeah, we'll see how that works out for you.
yeah,
You
I'll
ain't
see how
gonna
that
get more
works out.
candy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so like I had
but it's
gone through
normal.
all this, and I'm working on my PTSD and therapy. I'm on the medications I need to be on. My diet's right. I'm losing weight. I'm working out.
These are all
I'm
physical things. You notice these
yeah.
are all physical things.
Well, I didn't realize that until now.
Okay, those are all
Uh,
physical things, which is great. You need to
yeah. So
balance. You need to balance with your mental and your spiritual as well. You need all three.
okay, all right. And
But
so
you've
I'm
talked
doing all.
about it. You've worked on it some. You worked on, but just keep remember, as much as you want to pump the iron for your muscles, you gotta work the old noggin too, and the whole heart too.
It's just I resisted it. So I had basically like turned over every stone and been like, where is, the problem? Why am I not getting better? Why am I having flashbacks? Why am I having PTSD dreams? Why is it hard to decide whether I'd be sleeping or awake? If I could pick one world, which one would I pick? Which one's better? So up until this point, that I made a complete mess of things and that I needed to get back on track. I didn't want to die by my own hand after surviving being shot in the face and being in a 5-week coma where my right lung collapsed and I had pneumonia in both of them. Right? Personally, after being shot, after being in a 5-week coma, the first thing I had to do is I had to get sober, which we discussed. That was a really hard thing to do. I needed to lose weight, which I did. I still didn't feel great. I was taking the medications, I was doing the therapy, I'm meditating, I'm doing all of those things, right? I still don't feel good. So, as I talked about, I went to God and I was like, I need help. I don't know what I'm missing here. And in the next episode, I'm going to discuss what He revealed to me. Actually, a childhood memory that I had repressed that I hadn't thought about for 30 years. And it was hiding under a stone. And I am going to share how getting shot actually set me free from something that I was already in. And I've never really talked about that in public to a lot of people. I'm not going to go into details about what it is right now, but join us for the next episode where I'm going to talk about how faith set me free. Okay. Now, for all of you out there, please use us as a resource and send us your Shit Creek stories and how you got better. And please share all that with us. Send them to our podcast. You can reach us at www.shitcreeksurvivors.com if you want to check out the website, or reach out to us through the email shitcreekpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to get your stories so we can bring
Yeah.
more people in, make the group bigger, make it stronger. And if you
It'll be
are
just one person. It'll
experiencing
be worth it.
yeah. And if you are experiencing anything having to do with PTSD, or if you have any direct questions about PTSD, you can check out the website www.ptsdsupport.org. Okay?
And if
Thanks
you're
so
thinking
much,
about hurting
guys.
yourself or others, please reach out to the hotline and get help right away. Don't be afraid. Don't be so full of yourself that you think you can stop yourself from hurting yourself or somebody else. If you're thinking about something serious, get help.
Yeah.
Call the numbers.
There's more to your story.
Yeah, this isn't where it ends.
There's more to your story. All right, buddy. I love you. Thanks for doing this with me. Hopefully we
You
help
too,
some
brother.
people today.
You too,
And
brother. We'll see
I
you on the
will
next one.
absolutely love you, buddy.
Love you, brother.
Bye.